Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Rahul Agarwal about the future of design, the gig economy, and implications for organizational leaders. Rahul Agarwal, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today. You come to us with really interesting background and expertise in the domains of the contingent workforce and the gig economy, as well as design work and design thinking. And so I was thinking today that we would focus on the role of the future of design, the future of the gig economy, and implications for organizational leaders and organizations as they move into the future of work. So that'll be our focus for today. As we get started, I wanted to share Rahul's bio with everybody. Being awarded as the Rising Entrepreneur of the Year in 2019 and Entrepreneur 35 Under 35 in 2020, and Asia's Most Promising Business Leaders 2021 by Economic Times, Rahul Agarwal has co-founded Design Hill and created a unique online marketplace to overcome the challenges faced by the business owners in outsourcing high-quality creative solutions and designers who have been looking for creative freedom. He's a serial entrepreneur, passionate marketer, investor, advisor, and a firm believer in the concept of constant learning and growing. His outstanding digital knowledge and business skills have led Design Hill to be acknowledged as the creative startup of the year in 2019 by Entrepreneur Magazine. And you can find more about him and his organization at designhill.com. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a real pleasure. Anything else you would like to add by way of background or personal context before we launch into the conversation?
To be really honest with you, I mean, you've pretty much laid down everything, of the recent past. Design Hill is something that, me and my younger brother started 5-6 years back. And, we've just been, so dedicated to this. And I think we're really happy with where we are today in terms of the services that we've been able to build. We've catered to over 200,000 different businesses from around the globe. We have the creative professionals ranging from 300,000 plus from over 150 countries. So we're quite happy with what we've built, and we are able to cater to everybody today, from a work from home mom to a multinational organization like Microsoft or Deloitte or SAP. So for us, we're just trying to create a better solution, a better platform for anybody to source quality design and print them.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. And I applaud you for all of the many professional successes you've had. Clearly, there are many, and I could have gone on and on and on in presenting your many accolades and everything that you've accomplished. And where are you headquartered currently?
So we are based out of India, and our headquarters in New Delhi. We have a company in Delaware, US, as well as in Singapore. We and then apart from that, we do have a large number of people who work with us remotely. I think that's sort of in sync with what we do. We're an online platform, freelancing platform. So we have a lot of people who work from us from Netherlands, in Europe, from UK. A few people as well remotely work for us from United States. So that way, we consider and think of ourselves as a pretty global organization, though we have our headquarters in India, in New Delhi.
Yeah, well, thank you. And clearly, Design Hill and everything that you've built is in perfect alignment with what I wanted to explore with everyone today. Uh, you know, thinking about the world of design and the principles of design thinking, and then also layering that with this gig economy, contingent workforce. Your company is a platform to connect, right? These gig workers, and then what does that really mean for organizations? So listeners tuning into this podcast, they're typically organizational leaders trying to think, how can I better manage my people? How can I better lead my organization and develop and maintain a strategic advantage and competitive advantage in the marketplace? So what can design do for us? What can how can we leverage the gig economy to help our organizations be more successful?
I think fundamentally, if you think about what a business really stands for, it's about optimization, it's about efficiency, it's about making money. End of the day, isn't it? And you always want to increase your top line, but more importantly, you want to increase your bottom line. And I think that's the case for any kind of organizational leader or business leader or entrepreneur. Now, where gig economy comes into play is, it basically leads us to think that, you know not everything is possible to be done in house. As a business, there are a lot of functions that a business has to do. If you're a manufacturing facility, you have to buy raw materials, you have to find distributors, you have to sell your product. Again, but design in all of this is, omnipresent. It's everywhere, whether it's in your branding, it's in your packaging, it's in your social media presence, on your letterhead, on your business card. And 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 where we as a platform, sort of amalgamate all of this, is that we allow businesses to focus on their priorities, things that can help increase their bottom lines, increase their profitabilities, because a design process, a design thinking will not help them do that as much as a sales function or a marketing function or an efficiency function would allow them to do. So where we come in place, or a gig economy for that matter comes into place, is that for all the functions which are, I would say, non-core to a business organization, they can be outsourced to people who are good at it. You don't need to necessarily hire them, have them on a fixed payroll. You don't have to pay them monthly salaries, but whenever and as and when you need them, you require them, you can go and outsource that job or function to the best possible people out there, right? And that's where, the gig economy really really helps, because today, with technology, with internet penetration, we cannot be just limited to our own local geography, right? So earlier we would just think about, okay, who's the best closest possible designer next door, or within our town, or anywhere else. Now, for us, gig economy changes all of that, isn't it? Now we are able to hire somebody sitting in US, hire somebody from UK, or from Australia, or from South America, and it works beautifully, because one, you're able to get a high quality service. Number two, you're able to get it at an affordable price. Number three, the world is your marketplace, isn't it? I mean, you can pick and choose, and you can, and for one reason, if it doesn't work out with one professional, you can hire another one. And it's unlike a full-time employee, where maybe if you're not happy with the quality of the service being given or the work being done, you sort of stick around. I mean, you don't, it's not that easy to lay off somebody, but you have that sense of detachment to a gig economy worker. So in all respects, what I feel is that gig economy really revolutionizes and changes the way businesses can function. They can be more leaner, they can be more they can be less dependent on fixed, certain functions that are not core to their function, not core to their business. And I think that's the most important thing, that, and it's only going to increase now, because more and more businesses are realizing the importance of a gig economy in their business life cycles, and that's how we're seeing it everywhere in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are so many tremendous opportunities provided, not only through contingent workers and gig workers, but to your point about not being limited geographically, right? We as we've seen even more so over this past year during the pandemic, that we're virtually connected, and we're in this globalized, interconnected world. The internet penetration, like you said, like we can literally connect with anywhere in the world and work with and collaborate with people all over the world. And many organizations have moved to remote work with their full-time staff, with their employees, but that also works with part-time or contract workers. And so having a means to be able to facilitate, those connections so that I can have trust in the platform and trust in the people I'm getting connected to, who may be halfway across the world that I've never met, but who can do really great work for me. And then I have that flexibility, like you said. I think that's just really, really important. Now, it is worth noting while there are many positives around the gig economy, that there are some things we need to be thoughtful about and careful about, in terms of how we want to establish our organization and the culture, and the potential to erode that culture through a lot reliance on contract and gig workers. But we'll set that conversation aside for another day. I think that's a really important conversation that we have to grapple with, as we move into the future of work, because I feel like whether people are comfortable with it or not, that's the direction we're going. And so that's going to happen more and more. And we do need to grapple with that. I think it's worth noting, there are tremendous benefits to organizations in terms of the flexibility, but there's also tremendous opportunities for the workers themselves. And we know that many millennial and Gen Z workers really prefer the flexibility. They prefer not being tied down to one organization or to one location. This phenomenon of the digital nomads who just roam around and travel and do their work as they go. That's a new phenomenon relatively. That's a bit different than previous generations. And so there can be a win-win scenario. We just also have to be careful and thoughtful about some potential negative implications for an organization through, over-reliance on a gig workers, right?
I mean, I wouldn't really say that I would in fact agree with you. And I think one of the things I mentioned earlier, if you would have noticed, is that I specifically mentioned that non-core functions, right? Because end of the day, it'll differ for every business. Now, if you're a branding agency or if you're a graphic design company, I would not recommend you to hire gig workers simply on from online marketplaces, because that's your core function, because that you need in-house designers, animators, video editors all day long, right? So I would recommend that you have them on a full-time basis. Whereas if somebody is not into that, you're a manufacturing organization, you're a restaurant owner, you're a you're selling a product on online marketplaces, an e-commerce website, then I would recommend that if you need some design work, you go and find yourself the best possible designer on a marketplace like Design Hill, because that's where you'll find them to be most affordable, most accessible, and all of that. So again, having a company culture, having full-time employees is obviously it's really important, because you need that face-to-face interaction, you need that closeness, you need to build that culture if you want to grow an organization. But so gig economy is always going to be, I think it's going to be becoming more and more essential. But again, so businesses have to really balance it out, because they have to see which are those functions that they want, that they are in need of at certain points of time. They don't need that function to be fulfilled every day of their business life cycle. So again, so it's a balancing act, and it's something that entrepreneurs and business owners have to look at very carefully, and then take a leap of faith, or take that decision to whether they want to have somebody in house full time, or they want to outsource that work to a gig economy worker.
I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership: Ordinary, Everyday Actions that Produce Extraordinary Results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. Let's talk a little bit more about design generally, the principles of design. So you run a design company, right? Nowadays, we talk a lot about design thinking and equity design thinking, and that's not limited to traditional design type occupations. I think, as some people might think, design thinking actually has wide sweeping implications that can influence organizations and leadership. So maybe if you can just lay out for us a few of the primary principles around design thinking that you see as being relevant and really important for leaders to be mindful of as they try to lead their organizations.
I think, design thinking as a principle, I think it has, it has different options and interpretations for different organizations. The way we look at it, we look at design thinking from a point of view that it allows us to have a very functional and very practical approach to, how we approach anything for that matter, because end of the day, a design has to fulfill a purpose, right? It comes down to a very simple statement. Whether it's a logo or it's a packaging, it has to signify something. It's an ends to a means, isn't it? So for us, the way we implement design thinking and the way we adopt it in our organization is that it has to be simplistic, it has to be functional, and it has to fulfill its meaning for what it's meant for. Because a lot of people, I think it's a complicate design thinking as a subject much more than it's required. I think it's talked about a lot, but it's understood less. That's my view on it, because it's very subjective. And again, as I said, organizations take it differently, they interpret it differently, and they adopt it differently in their organizations. For us, it's very simple. Anything we do, whether it's a marketing strategy, whether it's a implementation of a plan, whether it's even hiring to that fact, the more practical we can be, the more simplistic we can be, and the more in and out sort of a scenario we have. What is the input to a problem and what is the solution to that problem? If we are able to identify that, I think it sort of fulfills the purpose for us.
Yeah. I think those are really important points. And as I think about design thinking and the role of design within organizations, you mentioned a few, but I mean, there's so many. Everything we do has design elements to it. And I think about even big picture things like strategic things, and we have organizational design, we have job design, we have strategic development that you can utilize design approaches as you go through that process, right? In this iterative, continual learning process of quick, like you said, quick in and out, iterative learning and development is really key and important. And that's the kind of I think more than anything, it's important to adopt a design mindset as we carry out the various functions of organizations. And as a leader, if I am able to adopt that kind of a mindset, I think I'm by function of that mindset, I'm going to be more agile. I'm going to be more adaptive. I'm going to be more focused. I'm going to be, just the parsimony of running my business and running and working with my people, and focusing on the most important things. I think all of those are the elements that start to float to the top when we adopt that kind of a mindset.
Exactly. I think you got it perfectly right.
Yeah. So what are some, if you have any specific examples or tips that you might have for leaders listening to this episode today on what they can start doing today or tomorrow, to adopt a design thinking mindset, and in a way that will help them to improve things in their workplace?
I mean, what I can list down many, but I think one of the most basic ones that we do, in fact, I would have loved to show you our workplace, but uh, we have a lot of what you call walls. We intentionally got them to be, in white glass all around our office. And one of the things that we have these markers everywhere in our office. And I mean, it's a very practical, it's a basic thing that we do. But a lot of the times, when you're conversing with somebody, you're explaining things to someone, and you're doing it face to face, sometimes it gets difficult to communicate. A lot of the relevant information can get lost verbally. So what we've always done is that we always have, we always try to communicate things in boxes, in shapes, in flowcharts. And I think that sort of, it summarizes the most relevant information very quickly, because nobody's going to write 1,000 words on a board or with a marker, right? So what you do is you always pinpoint the most relevant information. You have a flow chart, you have directions, you have an input and you have an output, you have a strategy. And I've seen it work in multiple divisions, in multiple strategies, in multiple uh, organizations as well. Because when we're doing marketing calls, when we're doing our content calls, when you're doing a business plan, everywhere we've seen this sort of work well for us. I know, I mean, it's not exactly pinpointing on how we are using design thinking, but if you think about it, a flow chart, an organizational chart, a strategy map is also based on that, isn't it? And that's what we implement a lot, and we encourage a lot as well. So if you go, in fact, even in my room, I mean, there are three walls on which there are always things which are designed and drawn and stuff, and we are able to really summarize them very well. The most important information is transmitted very quickly and easily among our colleagues. So I think that's something that we feel works really well.
Thank you. That's a great example. I think um, I've felt invigorated and empowered when I've been in those types of physical spaces that allow for that level of collaboration, and the design elements to come to the top as we're thinking things through, and whether it's strategic stuff, whether it's, like you said, marketing or whatever the case may be, anything that a leader is doing, you get your people around you and you start to have meaningful dialogues and exploration. And to your point, the verbal communication, there's just something that's often lost, and so many people are visual learners, visual communicators, and there's something to, like, forcing yourself, like, even if it's clear in my mind, forcing myself to be able to succinctly put it in a diagram on the wall that helps me clarify my own thinking, and then it helps me communicate it more effectively. So I think that's a really great practical tip that people can start utilizing immediately, and even in the virtual workspace, as we're connecting via Zoom or Teams, or any other platform, there are functions that we can use for shared whiteboards and things like that, where we can do similar types of things. And so I would encourage listeners to explore that a little bit and think how you can utilize the elements of design thinking a little bit more effectively. And as Raul mentioned, also, how can we embrace and leverage the gig economy to benefit our organization? Like you said, in those non-core functional areas, but important places that we need expertise, we need contributions that perhaps we don't have in-house, the gig economy and these platforms that allow us to connect anywhere with people around the world are tremendous and provide a lot of opportunity for our organizations. Well, Raul, it has been a real pleasure talking with you today. The time has flown by and we're almost to the end of the episode. Before we close, though, I did want to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your business, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It was a pleasure speaking with you today. I had a great time, and for me, I'm not the most social person, but yeah, I am available on LinkedIn. So anybody who needs to, speak to me, I'm quite responsive. So I'll get back to you pretty much instantly. You can just look me up at Rahul Agarwal and with a space and Design Hill, which is our company's name, and you'll find me there because my name is a pretty common name in India. So I don't want you to go to some place else and just have Design Hill in your search. Other than that, for Design Hill, it's just very simple. You just can reach out at www.designhill.com. We have a 24/7 live chat customer support. So, if any of you have any questions regarding our services, or even if you want to just reach out to me, you can just message one of our customer service agents and I'll be in touch with you within 24 hours. Apart from that, as far as gig economy is concerned and design thinking is concerned, I think there are two very relevant subjects in today's world for business owners and leaders. I think it's a lot of it is about being relevant, being adaptive, being ahead of the curve. I feel that from a personal perspective and from a professional perspective, it's really important for us to understand how the world is changing, how the dynamics of the business world are changing today, and learning of them at the same time, because and these things, like design thinking, these concepts and principles play a big role in that, right? Gig economy again plays a big role in that. So whether or not it may be useful for your business or not, it's imperative that we at least experiment and try these things. We try to implement these principles, or we try to use these services. They may not work for you, and that's completely fine, but at least the answer to that question, isn't it? And so that's my 2 cents of advice. And I had a great time. If anybody has any questions regarding these, as I said, I'm available on LinkedIn, or you can reach us at our website. And once again, I would like to thank Jonathan for having me on the show today. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It really was a pleasure talking with you. I look forward to having future opportunities to continue the conversation. And I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected, find out more about Design Hill, connect with Raul. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. We are excited about the launch of HCI's new magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine designed to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We will be publishing issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Check out the first issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us.